Hello, Education 1030 students. I hope everyone is having a great week and had a great Easter. I can't believe it. If you look here on our syllabus course calendar, you're going to see that we basically just have 2 weeks left of school, of spring classes. So we are actually finishing out the very last chapter in Unit 3, which is going to be Chapter 2. Now, if you remember correctly, way back in the beginning of the semester, we did chapters 1 and then jumped into chapter 12, which was that career component. We needed to do that because we were working alongside our career, right, exploring the field. So because of that, we needed to do chapter 12, which is about careers and planning your future. So now we're going to go back and finish with chapter 2, which is all about growth mindset, cultivating resilience, and really looking at not only your motivation, but also what emotional intelligence is. So we're going to be working on chapter 2 and finishing it out. Now, it will be due April 24th. I will get into your assignment. You will have your chapter 2 quiz. A look ahead for the last little bit. You have next week, we will be studying for our Unit 3 exam. You will be preparing for that. You also will be submitting your last Exploring the Field video reflection if you haven't done so already. Also, I want you to note that you should still continue to work on your Exploring the Field presentations. I will be talking about that next week, about when they're due. I will get in a little bit of how I want you to present and record yourself in this video. That way you can go ahead and work on those final, wrapping up those final edits for your actual presentation. Also, next week I'll be sending an email out telling you about our final exam. You will not have a comprehensive exam over everything. The last exam, which is going to be your final, will only be over Unit 3. So that's chapters 9, 10, 11, and 2. And then I will also, again, send you that email when you need to submit your reading organizers for bonus points. Also, next week, we will also be talking about our final exam schedule of when the final exam will be opening and when it will close, as well as the wrap-up activities for the end of the course. So that's just a look ahead. Let's go ahead and jump into chapter 2 so you'll know what you're doing. Now, as I go along, I will be noting some pages in your textbook that I want you to pay close attention to. Also, I have an additional PowerPoint slide that I really feel will be helpful. I really enjoy chapter 2 because it talks about growth mindset, which is something that I really think a lot of. I think that it helps cultivate our motivation and resilience, and also is tied to our emotional intelligence. So this is a really big chapter in terms of expanding your coverage of emotional intelligence, but also starting to cultivate that growth mindset and what that means. So you'll look here, you have to read chapter 2 in your textbook. You have the PowerPoint slides from the publishing company as well as your chapter 2 reading organizer. Now, I did mention that you have an additional PowerPoint, which I encourage you to look at and go through because it's important. There will be test questions on growth mindset. Now, your book does talk about Carol Dweck's growth mindset, but this PowerPoint goes a little bit deeper, and again, you have that text connection, so please make sure that you look through that, right? So really quickly to define what growth mindset is it's not a fixed mindset. When you have a fixed mindset, you really think that, you were born with these abilities, it's fixed, you cannot change, you have to have the talent alone to be able to do something and be successful, right? But when you have a growth mindset, you believe it's not something, intelligence isn't just something you naturally have, right? You can grow with time and experience learning, which we've been learning about this entire semester, what kind of learner you are, and growing yourself as a person. And you believe you can be successful if you put the effort and do it the right way. So this PowerPoint I really want you to look at. Also, you have 2 videos. One of them, again, is taking the growth mindset a step further, but also going into what emotional intelligence is and how you master that. So you have those 2 videos there that are extra for you to look at. So make sure you watch both those videos. Now, for your chapter assignments, your Chapter 2 quiz is going to be due Thursday, April 24th. It closes at 11:30 p.m. And then you have your Chapter 2 worksheet, which is all about emotional resilience. I will go over the Chapter 2 assignment that goes to Dropbox in just a moment. First, I want to take a minute to dive into our textbook a little bit for Chapter 2 so you know what you're doing and what I want you to focus on. So, your attitude really plays a big role in your success. So I really want you to look on page 33, which is table 2.1, where it talks about how your attitude can affect your reactions, right? So what I want you to focus on when you're completing this is that you're going to read the situations in the table that it lists, and then I want you to write and be honest at how you would react. On the next page, 34, it really goes a little step further in talking about the connection between maintaining a positive attitude and with motivations in things in your life when challenges arise, and about how you can adjust your thinking. So that's on page 34. Then, the next component in that section 2.1, it goes right into growth mindset, which is what I really want you to focus on. So if you look in your textbook on page 35, there's a table. It's kind of like a little self-reflection, if you will. And I want you to look at that and answer and complete the table. And what you're going to do with this exercise is that it gives you 10 sets of statements, okay? And for each pair of statements, you're going to place a check mark to the one that sounds most like you. And what you'll do is, when you're finished going through this set of statements, you will count up mostly A statements. That means you have a fixed mindset. If you circled mostly B, that means you have a growth mindset. And if you go on to look at the PowerPoint slides and watch the video on growth mindset, after you read that section, it's really going to help you make a deeper connection and some strategies that might help you if you are fixed, maybe how you can change and grow and make it a growth mindset. The book also talks about, Chapter 2 talks about resilience and why this is important. But then after resilience, it really talks about emotional intelligence, which is starting on page 39, and really understand what emotional intelligence is and how it plays a key role in your life and how it's connected to growth mindset. So if you look on page 40, there is a emotional intelligence questionnaire that I would like you to take. Again, it gives you questions. You have multiple choice answers. When you get done, you will count up your scores to see where you fall and if you have a strong emotional intelligence or not. And then on 41 and 42 and 43, and continuing all the way to page 45, this whole section is where it's really going to dive deeper into emotional intelligence. And again, you have that video to help you how to master your emotional intelligence, which I require you to watch. Okay, so there's a lot of great material in Chapter 2. I would start out reading the Chapter 2 before I look at the PowerPoint and the videos. And then lastly, finish with your worksheet, which I'm going to show you now what you need to be doing. So this worksheet is something you will complete and put into Dropbox. So what you're going to do, it's really simple, but thinking back to chapters 9 and 10 when you had to do, you had to complete using text-based response, which means use evidence from your book. That's why I suggest you doing this homework piece last, because then you can go back in your book, go back and make connections to the the video, which will help you answer this. So what you're going to do is you're going to answer these questions here. Now, you will need to complete this in a writing format. And what do I mean by that? I want you to develop a 2 to 3 paragraph text-based response, okay? Paragraphs are usually anywhere from 3 to 5 sentences. I'm not going to accept a one-sentence response, right? This is not a short answer. This is actually a piece of writing where you're going to answer these questions in paragraph form. So you could read them all through and answer them. What I tell students is I would actually divide each question into a paragraph, right, and develop your writing that way on this assignment. So the first one, for instance, says, in what kinds of situations have you reacted with defensiveness, anger, sadness, annoyance, resentment, or humiliation? And then I want you to write a paragraph talking about that situation. Describe what happened. Put that out there for me so I can get a picture into what's going on and what happened and how you reacted. Then the second paragraph is you're going to do a little bit of reflection. Take a step back, right, and process these reactions. Sometimes after something has passed for a while, it's easier for us to be able to go back and reflect on our feelings. So what did you say or do in response to your feelings? So how did you respond to the situation with your feelings and why? And talk about this with someone you trust. And the reason why you want you to bring this situation back up is because it's going to allow you to walk through your feelings, your reactions. Again, this is tied to emotional resilience. Go back in your textbook and look, right? So go back to page 39, and from 39 to 45, it talks all about emotional resilience. Think about the book. And then lastly, your third paragraph, you're going to put, what can you do to take control and make good choices the next time you are faced with a potentially volatile situation? Now, here's where having the textbook is going to help you and reading the textbook chapter first, because that's where you're going to get this third question answered by looking in your textbook. That's going to give me my textbook-based response, right? You're using evidence from the textbook chapter to write your answer. And so please use college level writing. I know this isn't a English composition course or an English lit course, but nonetheless, we do expect college level writing, so please keep that in mind. All right, and even though you're using text-based responses, remember, this is a situation that happened to you. All right, so that will complete your assignment. And again, it will be due on Thursday, April 24th. The Dropbox closes at 11:30. All right, continue to work on your presentation. So I'm going to take the rest of the time in this video to talk about your presentations. Now, I'm using a software that is called OBS. O as in octopus, B as in boy, S as in Sam. What you're going to do is you're going to pick which platform you'd like to do. So first I want to look at the presentation part, because this is what you're going to be graded on. This is the part you're working on now. I've already hopefully looked at your outline, gave you permission to begin putting your presentation together. Now, your presentation, since you are not presenting to us live in front of the class, you do need to have a PowerPoint. So you're going to be submitting two things to Dropbox. To the discussion board. You're going to submit your PowerPoint, and you will also be submitting a recording. Now, we'll get into that in a minute. Now, your presentation has to include visual aids. So this could be PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint. You can use Prezi, you can use Book Creator, Google Slides. Really, I'm letting you take the lead on what tool you want to use for your visual aid. Now, after you do that, you are going to use your outline to put the slides together, okay, which I think most people have started putting them together. Remember, I'm more than glad to give you feedback. If you want to send me your PowerPoint ahead of time, I'll look at it and see where we're at. Now, here are some good things you need to look at. Make sure that whatever you put in your outline is what's going in your presentation. Now, here's the thing to remember. Your presentation should have a visual, meaning give us pictures of what your job looks like, right? Visuals help. Many people are visual learners. We learned that when we did chapter 4, talking about what kind of learner you are. So visuals help. You could also use a short audio clip or video clip talking about your job, which is also helpful to include in the presentation. The thing I want you to note is a presentation can only be 3 to 5 minutes long, so this is something to keep in mind when you are putting your PowerPoint together. You only want to hit the highlights. That's why we had you do an outline ahead of time. The second thing to remember is you're going to be recording yourself. The recording does not need to be over 5 minutes, okay? So what you're going to do is if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, and remember, we're in this section underneath Unit 3 that says Exploring the Field. This is the last section that says Presentation. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you're going to see a discussion form. This is where you're going to submit two things. You're going to submit your PowerPoint, whether it's PowerPoint, whether it's Prezi, Book Reader, Google Slides, whatever it is, you have to submit it. And the second thing you're going to put in is going to be your recording. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using OBS as a recording software. This is a screen capturing software that allows me to show you my screen as well as seeing me somewhere on the screen. That's what I'd like you to use. You don't have to be limited to OBS. There are lots of ways that you can record yourself and share your screen at the same time, or so we can see it. One of the other things you can do is use Teams. Teams allows you to record and allows you to share your PowerPoint as well as see you or at least hear you. And then Zoom also does that as well. There is many ways that you can record yourself while you are showing or sharing your screen, and that's what I want you to look at. If you have trouble, you could reach out to me. I'm more than glad to help you. But remember, Teams, Zoom, OBS, don't pay for any software. There's lots of free software out there that allows you to record your screen while we can hear an audio or see visual and audio, which would be even better, okay? So that's what I would like you to do. And remember, that's going to be going inside of the discussion board. And it says Exploring the Field Presentation. So it's not going to go in the Dropbox. It will be going into the discussion forum. All right, so that pretty much completes that. Also, don't forget to continue, if you haven't started working on your last video reflection for Exploring the Field, make sure that you work on that either this week or next week because that will be due soon. All right, I hope everyone has a great week. Please reach out should you have any questions about Chapter 2 or Exploring the Field presentation. All right, take care.